everybody, welcome to Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane and Molly. Yep, on July 1st, it is a brand new month. We are still in the summer months, so we're actually in the second summer month. I don't know why I put that up because that equals 4 if you add them, I guess. We're in the second month of summer, and it is all about fires and trials. So it's a season of challenge and revealing our power. And the summer months carry themes of transformation, divine conflict, and heroic trials, where passion burns bright, destinies collide, and truth can no longer remain hidden. Emotion intensify into courage, ambition, defiance, and resolve. Summer demands action, sacrifice, asking us to face trials, wield power wisely, and forge identity through endurance, leadership, and choice beneath the unrelenting light. All right, so those are our summer themes. So you already know that from when we went through June last month. But we are no longer on the month of heroes and quests. We are diving into the month of gods and titans. So July is all about our month of gods and titans, Molly. Are you paying attention? This is where you're supposed to say what the archetype is. The archetype is the divine witness, and all of our themes for this month specifically are chaos versus order, power and a hierarchy, creation by force, divine law, cosmic battles, sacred authority, justice and punishment, and the cost of godhood. So those are all of our themes and topics for the month of July. Are you ready, Molly? We are in week 1, obviously, since it is July 1st, day 1, week 1, and we are talking about the first gods all week this week. So with it being the week of gods and titans, we're starting at the very beginning with the first gods. It's where we're going to see more of the titan-like entities. But July 1st is the birth of gods. So today's theme is divine beginnings. Our lesson is that even gods are born. So we're going to see that through Egyptian, Greek, Yoruba, and Maori tradition today. And we're going to think about the question of what power do I acknowledge? So what power do I acknowledge? This is a big question for a lot of people because, I mean, what power do you acknowledge within yourself? Yes, but what do you think is out there? I mean, it's a big discussion of the Big Bang versus there being a God versus there being multiple gods versus, I mean, there are a bunch of different things to believe in. So today we're thinking about what power do I acknowledge? Then we are going to light a candle to witness the act of emergence, naming a power that existed before us and will endure after us. So we're going to light a candle to witness the act of emergence, and then we're going to name a power that was here before us and that will remain after us. And then our final thought for today, because Molly is in need of pets. I don't know if you guys have noticed because she's been so polite this entire episode, but she needs pets and attention. She requires scratches. She must have been there when the first gods were created, or born, or arose, or banged. But anyways, the final thought for today is to place yourself consciously within the presence of a force greater than your own making. Not like in a dangerous spot, but yes, like this is dangerous. But you are going to place yourself consciously within the presence of a force greater than your own making. Okay, and just have a great day. We have a great month full of all this Titan and God craziness. And we are going to kick it off with today with these 4 stories. Hope you enjoy them. And we will see you tomorrow. Hummels. Go, Molly. All you have to do is meow like twice. That's all I'm asking. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Atum rises from noon. Before the first sunrise ever painted the horizon, before the Nile carved its winding path across the earth, and before the stars found their places in the endless heavens, there was only noon, the infinite and silent sea, primordial waters stretching beyond imagination in every direction. Nothing possessed a name. No wind stirred the darkness, no land broke the endless surface, and no creature yet dreamed of life. Within that boundless stillness, however, rested limitless potential, waiting for the moment when creation would awaken. From those eternal waters rose a single mound of dry earth, the first land to exist, lifting itself above the flood like the promise of a world yet unborn. Upon that sacred hill stood Atum, the self-created one, owing his existence to no parent, no maker, and no force beyond himself. He emerged complete, carrying within him every possibility of creation, embodying both the beginning and the end. And for the Egyptians believed that all things would one day return to the waters from which they first arose. Looking across the endless emptiness, Atum understood that existence required more than solitude, and through the divine power that dwelled within him, he brought forth Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Together they became the first breath and the first balance, separating what had once been undivided. Yet as they wandered into the vast unknown, Atum found himself alone once more. Fearing they had been lost within the endless darkness, he removed his sacred eye and sent it to search across a newborn universe. The eye journeyed faithfully until it found Shu and Tefnut, returning them safely to their father. Overcome with joy, Atum wept, and where his tears struck the fresh earth, humanity came into being, reminding every generation that people were born from divine compassion as much as divine power. Shu and Tefnut soon gave life to Jeb, the earth, and Nu, the sun, who embraced one another so tightly that nothing could exist between them. To make room for creation, Shu gently lifted Nu above Jeb, separating heaven from earth and creating the space where life could flourish. Across that sacred expanse, the sun would travel each day, carried by the descendants of Atum's first act of creation. From Jeb and Nut came Osiris, Isis, Set, Nephthys, whose own stories would shape kingship, justice, love, betrayal, death, and rebirth throughout Egyptian belief. Yet every god, every pharaoh, every grain of wheat growing beside the Nile, and every soul journeying in the afterlife traced its origins back to that lonely figure who first rose from the waters of noon. In every sunrise, the Egyptians saw Atum's first emergence repeated, a daily reminder that even after the deepest darkness, creation could begin anew, and that the greatest power in the universe was not destruction, but the courage to rise from silence and bring order into the unknown. Story 2. Gaia emerges. Before Olympus crowned the heavens with its shining peaks, before the seas rolled against the distant shores, and before gods, mortals, or monsters walked beneath the sun, there existed only chaos, an endless and immeasurable void without form, boundary, or direction. It was not chaos in the sense of confusion or destruction, but an infinite emptiness where nothing had yet been given shape or purpose. From that silent abyss came the first stirrings of existence as Gaia, the great earth, awakened from within the void itself. Vast beyond comprehension, she spread outward in every direction, becoming the solid foundation upon which all future life would rest. Her mountains rose like ancient bones pushing through fresh soil. Her valleys cradled the promise of forests yet to grow, and her deep caverns waited for mysteries that had not yet been imagined. Soon after Gaia came Tartarus, the unfathomable depths beneath the earth, and Eros, the ancient force of attraction whose quiet power drew creation together and allowed life to multiply. Yet Gaia stood alone beneath an empty expanse, and so, from herself, she brought forth Uranus, the star-filled sky, whose shimmering body stretched across the heavens to cover her completely. Together, earth and sky embraced, and from their union came the first generation of mighty beings. The 12 Titans, the towering Cyclops with their single blazing eyes, and the Hecatoncheires, whose 100 hands and 50 heads made them beings of unimaginable strength. But Uranus feared the power of his own children. Rather than allowing them to walk freely upon Gaia, he forced many of them deep within her body, imprisoning them in darkness where their cries echoed through the stone. Gaia bore their suffering for a time, yet every imprisoned child became another wound within the living earth, and eventually the weight of that pain could no longer be endured. Determined to free her children, she fashioned a great sickle from unyielding stone and called upon the Titans to challenge their father. Only the youngest, Cronus, answered her plea. Hidden in the shadows, as Uranus descended once more to embrace the earth, Cronus struck with a sickle, overthrowing his father and separating heaven forever from earth. Their eternal embrace ended, creating the open world between them, where rivers could flow, winds could travel, mountains could stand, and living creatures would one day thrive. Though the act marked the beginning of conflict among the gods, it also allowed creation to continue, for the world itself required both union and separation to flourish. From the blood of Uranus sprang new beings, including the Uranes and the giants, while from the sea, where his severed power fell, arose radiant Aphrodite, carried upon the foam to greet a world forever changed. Thus, the Greeks remembered that creation was never a peaceful unfolding, but a story shaped by birth, sacrifice, rebellion, and transformation, with Gaia standing at its heart as the eternal mother whose strength gave rise to gods, kingdoms, and every living thing that would one day walk upon her sacred body. Story 3. Olódùmarè sends the Orishas. Long before forests whispered beneath the wind, before rivers carved their silver paths through the earth, before humanity kindled its first fire beneath the stars, there existed only the vast heavens above the endless waters, stretching beneath them. High above this quiet expanse dwelled Olódùmarè, the supreme creator, whose wisdom was beyond measure and whose power flowed through every corner of existence. Though all life rested within the creator's boundless spirit, the world below remained unfinished, covered entirely by water with no land upon which living things could flourish. Desiring that creation should bloom with beauty, purpose, and harmony, Olódùmarè entrusted this sacred task not to one being alone, but to the Orishas, the divine spirits who carried different gifts and responsibilities. Among them was Obatala, wise and noble, chosen to bring shape and life to the earth below. Armed with a golden chain reaching from the heavens to the waters beneath, a sacred snail shell filled with sand, a white hen, and a palm nut, Obatala descended from the heavenly kingdom toward the silent waters. Upon reaching the endless sea, he poured the sacred sand across its surface. The white hen immediately began scratching and scattering the grains in every direction, spreading them until hills, valleys, plains, and coastlines emerged, where only water had existed before. The place where the hen first scattered the earth became known as Ile-Ife, a city the Yoruba people have long honored as the spiritual birthplace of the world and of humanity itself. As the land expanded, Obatala planted the palm nut, which quickly grew into a towering tree bearing many branches and countless seeds. From that single tree sprang forests, plants, and the promise of abundance, filling the once empty landscape with life and color. According to one cherished tradition, Obatala later shaped the first human beings from clay gathered from the newly formed earth, carefully molding each face, hand, and heartbeat with loving attention. When his work was complete, Olódùmarè breathed divine life into those figures, transforming them into living people and reminding all generations that while human hands may shape, it is the Creator alone who grants the sacred breath of life. The Orishas continued guiding rivers, storms, harvests, wisdom, healing, and justice, each carrying different parts of creation while remaining servants of the Supreme Creator, rather than rivals for divine authority. Through their harmony, the world became a place where heaven and earth remained forever connected, where every mountain, stream, tree, and village reflected both visible and invisible realms working together. For the Yoruba people, creation was never a distant event completed and forgotten, but an ongoing relationship between humanity, nature, the Orishas, and Olódùmarè, reminding every generation that the world flourishes when wisdom, cooperation, and reverence walk hand in hand beneath the same sky. Story 4. Tāne separates sky and earth. Before daylight warmed the forests, before birds filled the air with song, before the oceans reflected the stars above, the universe rested in perpetual darkness. In the ancient age, Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuka, the Earth Mother, clung tightly together in an unending embrace, their love so complete that not even a single ray of light could pass between them. Wrapped within a narrow space between their bodies lived their many divine children, the Atua, powerful beings who would one day become guardians of the natural world. Though they loved their parents dearly, the children grew weary of the endless darkness in the cramped world that left no room for life to flourish. Gathering together, they debated what should be done. Some believed their parents should be destroyed so that freedom might finally come, while others argued that such an act would shatter the sacred bonds of family forever. Among them stood Tāne Mahuta, the god of forest and birds, whose heart carried both courage and compassion. He could not bear the thought of harming his parents, yet he believed that the world could never grow while heaven and earth remained forever locked together. Lying upon his back, Tāne pressed his mighty feet against Ranginui, while bracing himself firmly upon Papatuanuku. Slowly, with every ounce of his strength, he pushed upward. At first, nothing happened, for the embrace of sky and earth had endured since the beginning of time. But Tāne refused to surrender. Gradually, a sliver of light appeared where none had ever existed before. The opening widened as Ranginui rose higher into the heavens, while Papatuanuku remained below, giving birth to mountains, valleys, forests, and fertile plains. For the first time, sunlight poured across the land. Birds took flight through the open skies. Rivers found their courses, and every living thing was given room to breathe and grow. Yet this triumph came with sorrow. Though forever separated, Ranginui and Papatuanuku never ceased loving one another. Even now, the Māori say the tears of Ranginui fall from the heavens as rain, grieving for the beloved Earth Mother below, while the morning mists that rise from forests and valleys are the gentle sighs of Papatuanuku, reaching upward and longing for her eternal companion. Not all of the divine children accepted Tāne's choice. Tawhiri Matea, the god of winds and storms, was filled with anger over the separation and unleashed fierce tempests upon his brothers, beginning the great struggles between the forces of nature that continue to shape the world. Yet despite those conflicts, life flourished within the space Tāne had created, and humanity would one day walk beneath the sky because one son found the courage to make room for growth without abandoning love. Through this sacred story, the Maori remembered that creation is not always born through conquest or destruction, but sometimes through the painful act of allowing what is deeply loved to change, trusting that even separation can give rise to new life, new beauty, and a future that could never have existed in the darkness alone. Daily Thread for July 1st, the birth of gods. Though oceans and continents separated the people who first shared these stories, each looked upon the mystery of existence and found the same enduring truth. Every beginning emerged from something unseen. The Egyptians watched a creator rise from silent waters. The Greeks remembered the living earth awakening from the endless void. The Yoruba honored the supreme creator, who entrusted the shaping of the world to faithful hands. And the Maori spoke of love making room for life as the heavens and earth were gently parted. None of these traditions imagined creation as accidental. Instead, they understood it as sacred, intentional, and woven with purpose, reminding us that even the greatest powers begin with a single act of courage, wisdom, compassion, or sacrifice. Across generations, these stories became more than explanations of how the world began. They became reminders that every ending conceals the seed of another beginning, that order can rise from uncertainty, and that creation is both a gift and a responsibility. As today's fire settles into glowing embers, consider this. If the oldest stories teach that even the gods began somewhere, then perhaps every meaningful journey in our own lives also begins with the quiet courage to take a single first step into the unknown.